Hello, my name is Don Carson. You are watching the first in a series of 14 talks given in Minneapolis in early 2009. These talks are designed to help you find out what the Bible says. More accurately, they're designed to introduce you to God as He is talked about in the Bible, as He discloses Himself in events, in narrative, in worship, in love, in holiness, through the pages of this book. If you know nothing about the Bible, but would like to learn, this series is for you. If, quite frankly, you are in principle skeptical about whatever the Bible says, your first step ought to be finding out what it says. And so this series is for you, too. If you have become a believer in Jesus only recently and worry that you know far too little about the Bible, this series is for you as well. Some of you will watch the video series or listen to the corresponding audio series, perhaps in your car, and nothing more. That's fine. But some may want to dig a little deeper. But before you start, let me warn you, whether you are beginning this series out of the mildest curiosity or are embarking on it out of a passionate hunger to know and trust and worship the God of the Bible, I am quite sure that at least some of you will find yourselves strangely drawn to this God. You may find in delighted and shocked astonishment that you can no longer push Him away. Some of you He will capture. You'll probably find it easier to follow this series if you have a Bible at hand. I'll explain in the series how the Bible is organized and how to find things in it as we go along. So sit down and let me have your undivided attention for a few minutes as we begin at the beginning and think about the God who made everything.
It is an enormous privilege for me to be with you for this series. The God who is there. Before plunging into the first talk, it might be helpful if I tell you where we're going in this series. There was a time in the Western world when many people had read the Bible reasonably thoroughly, and therefore they knew how it was put together. Even those who were atheists were, shall I say, Christian atheists. That is to say, the God they disbelieved in was the God of the Bible. Their understanding of the God whom they found incredible was nevertheless, in some measure, shaped by their reading of the Bible. But today, of course, there is a rising number of people who really don't know how the Bible works at all. They have never really read it. And so the first place to begin in trying to understand what Christianity ought to be, who Jesus is to start again by reading the Bible. There are lots of ways in which we could, in theory, talk about Christianity. We could, for example, do a brief survey of the history of the Christian church. Or we might start analyzing what Christians in various parts of the world believe. But the best way to get at it is to examine Christianity's foundation documents. There are 66 of them. They vary in length from one page to small books. They were written over a period of 1,500 years in 3 languages. The biggest part was written in Hebrew. A very tiny part was written in a language like Hebrew called Aramaic. And the last part was written in Greek. So all of our Bibles today, the Bibles that we hold in our hands and pick up and read at leisure, all of these, of course, are translations of what was originally given in these languages. These 66 foundation documents are astonishingly diverse in form, in literary genre. Some are letters, some are oracles, some are written in poetry, some are laments. They have genealogies. They have sections that are said to be oracles from God Himself. Some are horrible wrestlings as believers try to understand what on earth God is doing. Some are written in a genre that we just don't use anymore. We call it apocalyptic literature. We'll come to that next week with astonishing symbolism that is visually striking. And then on top of that, they are astonishingly varied as well in terms of accessibility. Some parts you can read, and anybody with an ability to read a novel today can make sense of the text. And other parts are full of symbolism that is archaic, no longer used today, out of date, because it is located at a certain time in history. Now, all of these foundation documents have been put together. And when they're put together, they form the book. That's all Bible means. It's the book. It's the book of Christianity's foundation documents. And we who are Christians insist that God has disclosed himself supremely in the pages of these documents. In this series, I shall sketch in what the Bible says so as to make sense of what Christianity means, what Christianity looks like, if it is constrained by its own foundation documents. Because, truth must be said, very often Christians themselves have abandoned those foundation documents and betray the very heritage that they have received. The Christian claim, however, is that this Bible discloses the God who is there. Now, in this first session, we reflect on the God who made everything. And we begin by the first book in this collection, called Genesis. These books are put together with chapters and verses. That is, if you open the Bible anywhere, you'll find a break with a big number, that's the heading of a chapter, and then some small numbers. If you're not familiar with the Bible, if you've never read it at all, the easiest thing to do to orientate yourself is to open up to the first few pages, where you'll find in the series order within the Bible all the names of the books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and so on, all the way through, the whole 66. And then you'll get the page number, and you can find the book, and then you'll see there's a chapter number and a verse number. So if I say something like Genesis 1:26, I mean the first book of the Bible, the first chapter, verse 26. And over the course of these 14 sessions, I'll be referring to a lot of books of the Bible, a lot of passages. You won't have time to look them all up, but it's all recorded. You can look them up later, and that's how you find them if you have not become familiar with handling the Bible in the past. So we begin then with Genesis 1. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but I want to pick up parts of it and into chapter 2. This is what the opening line of the Bible says. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And then in successive days, various things are created by this God who says, "Let there be this," or "Let there be that." And occasionally there is a refrain added at the end of verse 10, "And God saw that it was good." So eventually you get to day 5, and the water teems with living creatures, and birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. God created the great creatures of the sea and every living and moving thing with which the water teems according to their kinds. And then the 6th day, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creatures that move along the ground, wild animals, each according to its kind. And at the end of the description, and God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in numbers, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move on the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. And then in the rest of chapter 2, there's a kind of expansion on the creation of human beings that we'll come to in due course.